Hello, seventh grade. I know you're super excited about week 5 of online learning. I know I am. I had such an amazing time grading your traits lab and seeing your pretty faces. Um, Thank you so much for trying so hard and participating so well and making sure that it was extremely effective. I hope you enjoyed our lab and do know that we will continue to have these labs throughout our online learning courses. We're going to be continuing with our whole unit of adaptations. And in order to be able to understand adaptations, we have had several different parts of it. So the first part that we covered, of course, was where we live. These are our biomes, what's in our environment, what do we need to live, how does it affect us if different things change in our climate, in our environment, and how we congregate as either having abiotic factors or biotic factors in our biomes. And talking about that, I do have a challenge up on the stream where you're able to post your pictures of abiotic and biotic factors that are in your biome and how they affect you and the world around you in your biome. So make sure that you're posting those. Those will be an extra 5 points on your biomes project. Super easy grade, super easy extra credit. I know that you guys are excited about walking around outside and getting out of the house, and this will definitely help you do that. So since we covered our biomes, then we went to our traits, and now we're going to be talking about genetics because our traits don't just come out of thin air. As we learned, they are going to be coming from either asexual reproduction from our plants that produce an exact copy of themselves, or we are also looking at what is called sexual reproductions, where you have two different individuals or two different animals that come together to make a new offspring. So now we're going to be talking about how this affects our heredity and what is inside of our genes that gives us what we need. So our objective is that our students are going to be recognizing that inherited traits of individuals are governed in the genetic material found in our genes within our chromosomes in the nucleus. And you have previously covered cells and understand what a nucleus is and what DNA is, and now we're taking it a step further with these chromosomes. So humans have two sets of chromosomes. One set is from each parent. And heredity describes how some traits are passed from parents to their children. The traits are expressed by genes, which are small sections of DNA that are coded for specific traits, and genes are found on chromosomes. So you do get half of your genes from one parent and half of your genes from the second parent. So as we move on, we're seeing that heredity is the passing of traits from parents to offspring. Traits such as eye color result from an information stored in the genetic material, which is the DNA. So most of the stuff that you physically see on the outside is coming from the genetic material in your parents. So heredity is the passing of traits from parents to offspring, as we said, and a trait is a feature or characteristic of a person. There are 3 different kinds of traits that you can identify: a physical appearance trait, a behavior tendency trait, or a predisposition to medical condition. So for example, my parents, both my mom and my dad, they have diabetes, and because of that, I now have diabetes. And so since I have my children, they have a predisposition, which means they have a higher chance of getting diabetes because they have a parent that has diabetes. So you need to make sure that you are understanding how genetics works and how things are passed on from one generation to the next generation. So we inherit this not only from our parents, but we also have environmental factors that affect whether or not we are meeting those marks on our chromosomes. So for example, people that do not receive the correct nutrition will be shorter because they're not getting enough of those vitamins that are needed to make them grow taller. So even if they have a gene that is a tall gene, so they're supposed to grow over the average height, they will not grow over the average height due to the fact that they do not have access to the nutritional values in foods that they need to have in order to be able to be successful. So we have an example here, which is one of our vocabulary words, which is a phenotype. So a phenotype is a person's version of a trait, which is their physical appearance. This can be your hair color, the texture of your hair, and the color of your eyes, etc. And as we learned, it was like your hitchhiker thumb, it was if your earlobes were connected or not connected, it was if you had a cleft in your chin. There were several different things that we were identifying during your traits lab to see how this was working. These are called phenotypes, and this is going to be very important as we go along to make sure that we understand the vocabulary on this. I will be posting this slide deck also in your resources so that you can have access to it and you can refer back to it as much as you need to. So then the next one we're going to be looking at is our gene. So the gene is the part of the person's DNA that influences the trait. So like we said, you get half from your mom and you get half from your dad. And so when you're looking at this or you're trying to figure out what you got from your parents, right? You also need to understand that it also comes from generations before your parents. So you might have anomalies, right? So you might see people that have curly hair, even though all their siblings have straight hair. And this is also because you need to look at all of the other generations and the genes that were passed down or the traits that were passed down from generation to generation, right? So I'm going to show you an example, a real world example, so that we can ground ourselves in our learning, right? So as you know, my dog decided that they were going to have 11 puppies, which I didn't ask them to have 11 puppies, but they were all for having 11 puppies. And because of that, they did have a mixture of puppies. So since we're talking about genes and having one from one parent and one from the other parent, I'm going to show you pictures of the mom and pictures of the dad and pictures of the puppy. And then we're going to see how this worked for the puppies. So this is my mom. This is the mom and the dad, right? So this is mom right here. And this is dad right here. As you can see, mom is black and white and dad is brindle and brown. But the puppy is black and white like mom. So even though the puppy had two different sets of parents, right? It did get the color from the mom. It got the little black nose from both of the parents, and it got the big round head from the dad. So as you can see, his head looks more like his dad, but the color looks more like the mom. And since they both have a black nose, the puppy has a black nose. And they are super cute. I keep posting updates for you guys so you guys can see them. So now that we are looking at this and we're seeing this, let's go back to our key points. So our key points are stating that we are getting our traits that are passed down from our parents, right? So our children receive these traits. So when we looked at the picture of the dogs, we can definitely see how these traits are expressed in the children or the child of, right, the puppies. Later on in part 2 of the video, when you're going to see in our lesson, the second lesson, I'm going to show you pictures of the different puppies so you can see how it is a little bit different even among all of the litters that among the litter that the puppy had. So they had 11 pups. So there are differences in puppies as well, but that will be in part 2.